Hey, Chuck. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Jeff McCullough. I happen to be the Senior Vice President of Advisory Services for Coffee and Dunn, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, Thomas Manders, the founder and CEO of Coffee and Dunn, as well as Chuck Ingram, the Chief Executive Officer from CongruentX. Hello, everybody. Today's session is really a discussion on aligning technology with revenue goals. Technology should fuel growth, not necessarily hinder growth. And so today we're going to do a deeper dive into what are those pitfalls as it relates to customer engagement in today's marketplace. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on what revenue leaders are doing as it relates to technology and their growth agenda. And we'll also talk a bit more about the essential ingredients as it relates to an effective revenue platform. But maybe before we do that, Thomas and Chuck, maybe you guys can talk through the organizations in a little bit more detail. Let's go to the next slide, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Let me give you a quick backgrounder on Coffee and Dunn, and then I'll pass it to Chuck. Coffee and Dunn's actually a kind of a 12-year Microsoft partner. We've been working in the channel to help our clients deliver what we call a connected experience that fuels their growth. And really, we've been able to do this across a number of industries. You see a few here: financial services, manufacturing. But we've also worked in, B2B2C environments, B2C environments, including things like higher ed or membership organizations. And so we have a broad set of experiences leveraging the Microsoft Dynamics platform. Our team's fully certified, a very important aspect of what we do. We've also been named a Partner of the Year and a finalist 2 times, literally 500 engagements over the 12 plus years in the channel. Our services really span kind of the full life cycle of the work with our clients, including strategy, where we assess and plan organizational growth strategies, technology, which is actually implementing the dynamics and related platforms, and then operations, where we work with teams to adopt and adapt their business processes to optimize and deliver growth. We do have a number of assets out at our Coffee and Dunn website. We also have some solutions available that we've built around the Dynamics platform that you see kind of in the center screen there. And then finally, to the right, you see kind of a mix of clients that we've worked with over the number of years. Many of those are still current clients. So again, that's a little bit of background on Coffee and Dunn. Chuck, I'll pitch it to you.
Absolutely. So, what I can say that Thomas, in his humility, won't say is Coffee and Dunn are a great partner um, to their customers and to their friends and other partners like us. We love partnering with Coffee and Dunn. We think that what Coffee and Dunn is very complementary to what we do at CongruentX. And even if it wasn't totally complementary, I think they would figure out a way to, hey, let's do what you're good at, and we'll let you do what you're good at. So thank you for the opportunity to be
Thank
on
you,
this
Chuck.
webinar together. Absolutely fantastic people. We're probably working on 5 engagements together right now.
Right.
So it's a testament. So I'm Chuck Ingram. I am blessed to be the servant leader of CongruentX. Been working with Microsoft Dynamics since 1.0 alpha. Um, and they say I've been worked at Microsoft for 7 years or whatever, and out in the channel since then at some big giant partners, and eventually decided to start my own with some good friends and fantastic business partners. But we sort of started our business out of a. They say a lot of entrepreneurs have some like a big frustration or something they're peed off about, let's say. And ours was CRM success. Is AI is a part of it now, and of course revenue is, but people is a big part of it. But companies are buying CRM, they're only happy with it 50% of the time. And I'm going to take an Uber to the airport later, and I don't want a 50% chance that I get to the airport. And so they're kind of getting it wrong. and it's because of friction a lot of times. And what we want to do is turn that digital friction into fuel, and to help them get CRM right instead of getting it wrong, so they can grow. And I think that tails perfectly into this topic and this great partnership we have with Coffee and Dunn, so we can turn friction into fuel. I think I don't think I mentioned, but you can see it on the slide. We're a Microsoft Solutions partner. We're focused on 3 primary industries. Chris Cognetta is on this call. He has led us. He's an MVP. We have 2 other MVPs. They are fantastic and have built IP around 3 different industries, and we're just excited about how people drive AI fueled revenue for industry using a revenue platform.
Appreciate that, Chuck. Why don't we go to the next slide here and kind of dig in a little bit? Regardless of the industry or the customer base that you end up serve, uh, organizations are facing sort of unprecedented shifts going on in the marketplace today. Maybe it's buyer behavior, maybe it's technology advancements, maybe it's this shift in market dynamics, maybe it's smarter customer engagement efforts. And what it's doing is forcing marketing and sales and customer service teams to revisit how they're approaching go-to-market strategy. Along with that is their CRM technology needs. And so what's changed? You've got, 2/3 of the buying journey that's now digital. It's not prescriptive, it's inconsistent. You've got 70% of the buying journey is actually complete by the time that buyers engage with sales teams. And so they're making the buyer journey their own. And then you've got other stats like 5 to 10% of your ideal customer profile is actually in market with active demand at any given point in time. And that's forcing marketing teams to be able to put as much effort into brand efforts as they are demand efforts, because they got to make sure that customers are aware of them before they are actually in demand or need a particular product. So you've got traditional go-to-market efforts, sub-optimized CRM technology that are reinforcing these random acts of customer engagement. And the result is an impact then on the efficiency and the effectiveness of what organizations are trying to do. That's causing rising churn, smaller sales sizes, higher customer acquisition costs, and even misaligned teams. And if we take that one step further on the next page, you often have organizations then that respond by pushing the same obsolete and siloed go-to-market activities in an attempt to really fuel and sustainable and predictive growth. You might have an executive team that has conflicting priorities. They may have an unclear go-to-market efforts. They may have an IT team that has technology challenges or even skill gaps. You've got marketing that's maybe doing underperforming campaigns. Maybe they're leveraging their budget in inefficient ways. And you've got sales teams that maybe have out-of-date insights, misaligned teams, or even staff turnover. And so this notion of misaligned people and processes and technology are affecting this effort around reducing costs and driving sustainable growth and improving the customer experience. And so let me pause there and just kind of ask the question to you guys, what do you sort of see as the biggest obstacles around sustained growth when it comes to technology or functional alignment or even operational rigor from your standpoint?
Yeah, I'll jump in. You know, what we see is that companies develop a culture and sort of a way of working over time. Now, culture can be a good thing or it can be a detrimental thing. A lot of times the culture is what gets you off the ground, and the teamwork and the partnership and all of that. But what happens over time is processes become ingrained, patterns become ingrained, decisioning and who's involved, and there's a sort of a political class that often starts to elevate. And so it becomes really difficult when the situation changes, the competitive market, the technology, those sorts of things change. It's hard to break the mold on some of the historical patterns that exist. And so what we
Mhm.
find when in a lot of the work that we do, we start with sort of a assessment or planning type effort, we see that there's some outdated methods, things like marketing, just generating leads because that's what they're measured on, not really thinking about or assessing or using the data that they have to figure out whether those leads are any good or not. And so they flood the sales team with leads. The sales team's trying to react with a volume of leads that may or may not be qualified. And so you end up with a lot of inefficient behaviors. And so, I think that's represented here on this slide, but we do see it in real life where the challenge is really trying to get stakeholders to rethink maybe the way that they go to market, how they align, are they aligned, how they measure themselves, and so forth. And we'll talk more about that through the session here, but that's some of the challenges that we see when we engage with clients.
Chuck, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thomas, that was a great point, and I think it's interesting. You talked about culture and people, and I forgot who said it, but there's a quote: "The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the questions you ask." And if you're asking yourself, "Can I sell more?" or "Do I need to replace this piece of technology?" you're really maybe asking the wrong question. Or is Jeff not selling enough? Or is it because I think a lot of times people are looking at this as pieces of tech and not as a system. And if we go back to the big picture of this webinar, is we need to start thinking of how we drive revenue from marketing to sales to onboarding to adoption to renewal and helping customers achieve outcomes as a system. And the good news, if we can change that way of thinking, and as Thomas says, that culture, we can optimize that system. As there's books about lean manufacturing and things like that, where if you can treat it like a system and measure it like a system, you can actually optimize it. But the first thing is, as Thomas said, sometimes the people. So that's my 2 cents to add to that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Well, it's a good segue. Why don't we move to the next slide then? Because really, one of the big opportunities for organizations to address that stalled organizational growth is leveraging their CRM technology as a connected revenue technology platform, as Chuck mentioned, right? And to do that across the customer lifecycle to fuel demand and overall value. It's about enabling that end-to-end stewardship, whether it's pre-sales, whether it's post-sales, whether it's through customer success. And this notion of the connected revenue technology platform is where Dynamics comes in, Microsoft Dynamics comes into play here, right? You've got dynamic sales, you've got customer insights, you've got customer service that acts as that connected revenue technology platform that drives customer telemetry and customer orchestration and customer continuity as in an effort to be able to drive that growth agenda. Right, and business leaders are looking at ways to be able to address the strategic pitfalls that often are tied to the stalled organizational growth. Right, they may be able to create a product, but they can't market the product. They might be able to market the product, but they can't sell the product. They might be able to sell the product, but they can't deliver the product. And even further downstream, as they start to think about recurring revenue or additional impact, they might not be able to drive upsell, cross-sell opportunities either. And so this is where Microsoft Dynamics Sales and Customer Insights and Service, delivers that connected revenue technology platform that enables the right go-to-market strategy. And so maybe again, let me pause and just kind of pose the question to you guys. Why do customers need to think about leveraging their technology stack as a connected revenue technology platform versus just simply a CRM or a customer relationship management engine?
Yeah, I can jump in. We look at this as an enabling platform, revenue platform, right? And what that means is there's not just a common database, of accounts and contacts and opportunities, but it's a common UI. And the UI, both of those things allow for the various stakeholders and users within the different departments to have a shared view of the customer. The language, the lexicon is the same, the look and feel is the same. There's a familiarity, and frankly, when you start to think about bringing together marketing, sales, service, even operations and so forth, having that continuity across the application, having that common language allows for much easier cross training or even departmental sharing, right? People can move from department to department because they're familiar with the look and feel and the lexicon that they're using in a day-to-day operation. So we feel like it's a unique platform that really enables that seamless integration across the organization.
Yeah. Anything to add, Chuck?
Just really quick, I agree with everything that you both said. And you ever, like in high school, when you took a class and you didn't realize that you were good at something that man, I didn't think I would be good at Spanish, or I didn't think I'd be good at volleyball. I'm a soccer player. But like the the number one job, it may have been passed by prompt engineer, but the number one job on LinkedIn last year was RevOps. And I think that we're going to find that our friends at Microsoft, and I'm not an employee anymore, but I still have a couple shares of stock. Um, I think we're going to find that their secret weapon is, one of their secret weapons is that what they have is a platform. It's not talked about that way as much as probably like folks like us would like, but it is an amazing platform to help drive revenue.
Appreciate that. Well, let's take it one step further here on the next slide, because while having that connected revenue technology platform like Microsoft Dynamics enables the right go-to-market strategy, organizations need to really address what problem are you looking to solve, right? What's the root cause, or what are those consistent go-to-market challenges that serve as the root cause of an organization's stalled growth? And they're really only a handful when you think of it. You may have a team that's not aligned around their growth strategy. You may have competitors that are winning more market share. You may have a sales, marketing, and customer service team that aren't necessarily aligned. You may have a business that relies upon the heroics of a sales team versus strategic plays, right? And so this is where functional leaders need to kind of step back. Leaders need to step back and really start to think about creating alignment around what is the biggest barrier to growth for the organization. Because at the end of the day, having a strategic growth playbook aligned with commercial teams, aligned with enterprise KPIs, allows organizations to be able to achieve their revenue goals with the support of a platform like Microsoft Dynamics. So again, maybe I can step back here and just kind of pose the question to you guys. What can organizations maybe do today to really optimize their technology to better address some of these growth challenges that we've been talking about from your perspectives?
Chuck, you want to take this one?
I like just saying, well, that was a good idea. But no. So I have a real simple one for this, is like data. I think according to Salesforce, and they would know, is 91% of CRM data is either inaccurate or just full of duplicates or just bad. So if you're trying to optimize this system and make it a better system, but you're not working off a common set of facts, then that's a problem. So maybe a step one we could think about is, how do we get good data in CRM? And yeah, there's all kind of deduping and things like that, but how do we get the unstructured things that we do every day into CRM? Conference calls, interactions on site with customers, emails, get that make sense out of that. But in order to do that, is we have to take the friction out of getting that data into the system. So we'll talk about other things later, but if we can take the friction out of getting insights and data into CRM, then that's a pretty good first step, it seems like.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yeah,
that.
I would agree with that, and I think, we see different mechanisms for automating that collection of data, basic things like forms,
Mhm.
and now with AI being able to capture conversation and bring that data in and summarize it, it really empowers or enables sellers to kind of see the level of interaction they're having with prospects and customers. So it's for us, especially when you look at the broad set of problems here, it's trying to work with the stakeholder group who might and frankly should ideally be cross-functional, and help them align themselves around a couple of these
Mhm.
as key focus areas to start getting some, what we'll talk about in a minute, but quick wins where we can see some progress and start to see the benefit of that alignment. And so, again, I think the tool set is very robust, and it's a matter of trying to figure out a good starting point that's going to drive initial benefit and then move from there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good point. When we move to the next slide, because Chuck, I think the point that you made about driving the insights is really important for this particular slide, which is really this notion that historically organizations have really focused on the left-hand side of this page with top of the funnel efforts. And this is a sales funnel that was put together by Winning by Design. And the point here is beyond maybe the impact of the initial sales, where you're driving lead generation and lead development and sales. Organizations need to focus also on the right-hand side of this funnel, where they're focused on the onboarding and the adoption and the expansion, because at the end of the day, it's that recurring revenue opportunity. It's that sustainable growth where you're driving upsell, you're cross-selling, and maybe even thinking about your lifetime customer value that's going to be key and important. So when we talk about this notion of precision revenue orchestration, at the end of the day, it's going to be fueled by those insights and that data, Chuck, that you ended up talking about, that requires that focus on sustainable growth, recurring revenue, lifetime customer value. And in order to be able to really understand that and what that next best product happens to be for organizations and for customers, it's having that data and insight that you ended up pointing out. Anything that you guys would add on this?
What you think, Thomas?
Well, I agree, Jeff, with everything you said. I think especially for medium and larger companies that have suites of products or services, collections of products and services that enable one another. This idea that there's an initial purchase, and then the ability to have subsequent purchase, product or service. That connection of knowing when's the right time, what's the pattern of purchase, for the ideal customer profile that many companies are focused on trying to identify, when is that appropriate event or interaction that's going to drive the subsequent purchase or the consistent purchase over time to create that lifetime value. And so having that kind of connection throughout the full customer life cycle is critical to being able to position the full complement of products or services that the company might offer.
Yeah, good point.
Makes good sense. There's this I pay a lot of attention to what these experts are saying about SaaS. And interestingly, a lot of times these smaller SaaS companies have a more advanced view of how to optimize revenue than maybe even some of our friends at bigger companies. Like they so we've lacked. I watched two conference keynotes recently. One was Winning by Design and one was TSIA, and they both were focused on the right side of that bow tie. Like, you can use all the CAC and LTV and renewal and all these the math, and that's important. But I think we can all agree it's cheaper to keep a customer and grow a customer than to get new ones. And there's some headwinds right now that make that even more important. So focus on the whole bow tie, and especially that right side is getting to be pretty important these days.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, Chuck. Why don't we flip to the next slide, Chuck, and maybe hand it over to you, and let's start to tie the bow tie with the revenue technology platform of Dynamics.
Yeah, you ever did karaoke before?
Never.
Embarrassingly,
So
yes.
I one time I was on a cruise and I went, man, this song has more words than I thought. So this slide has more words, but I think we can break it down. So if we agree that revenue is an engine, and that means that tech tracks that we got to use tech to track that engine, and we agree that we want it to work better, um, but there's people in this engine. And instead of machines in a factory, we have humans, we have people, and these people have jobs to be done. And I'm not talking about I'm an engineer. I'm talking about or I'm a salesperson. What are the stuff that I do as a salesperson? So if you think about it, like going across our bow tie, if we're trying to identify customers that think they might have a problem up front. That's our job to be done. We're educating the customer that we might have a solution that can help them. And then we're trying to help them pick us on this call and whoever listens to the recording to, that we might be a provider that can help them and be their solution provider. Then we're going to help them get onboarded with our product and adopt it, whatever it is. And we're going to help them try to get business outcomes with that solution, and maybe sell them more, or to renew for next time. And the cool thing is if we click to the next one, Microsoft, again, happy accident or all on purpose, has a toolkit where you just don't buy a SKU named revenue platform. But if you put all this together, you can connect the dots around helping people to do all of those jobs to be done. So yes, they have an amazing sales solution. Yes, they have an amazing marketing solution, but a top secret thing a lot of people don't realize is, I think maybe this is by design, but they call it customer insights data. Chris Cognetta's on this call. He will tell you we use customer insights data across the entire bow tie, and we're seeing customers do that every day. So it's not just a marketing thing. It's a way to keep track of data about our customers and make sense across the bow tie. We have the Power Platform. So the Power Platform can help us take systems like CRM, whether it's systems at the front end of the bow tie, like the sales solution, or systems at the back end of the solution, like customer service, and create buzzword alert contextual systems that help people interact with the tech based on the job they're trying to do at that moment. So think about, like, I'm about to walk in to see a customer, and we'll talk about this example later, and I don't want to look at a 7-foot long CRM form in the name of a 360-degree view. I just need to know the stuff I need. Like, do they have late shipments? Am I going to get my head chewed off? So with those tools, we can create contextual experiences that help get good data in CRM, but deliver it back to people in the context of the thing they're trying to do. And then there's the other layer on our cake here, which is Copilot. So Copilot's kind of becoming this new UI that we're all used to using at home, and now we can use at work, that helps us ask questions, or agents that can just do stuff with us or for us in the context of the jobs that we're trying to do them better. And I'll add this one thing in, and we didn't make it up, but it's a UX principle. It's functional, easy, and enjoyable. So you think about the job that somebody's trying to do is, can you do it? Yeah, I could do it if I got an 8-foot long form, but can we make it easy? So can we deliver that in a power app that makes it more simple? And can we deliver it in a way that they go, oh, wow, I just pulled into the driveway of this client and I can see everything I need to know about this. Then functional, easy, enjoyable. So we can measure how this all works together. And then once you got the good data in the system, you can start optimizing.
That's great, Chuck. Um, let's move to the next slide because I think, we've talked a lot about revenue orchestration, revenue technology. Let's talk about impact, right? Because when optimized, Microsoft Dynamics as a revenue technology engine anchored by sales and customer insights and customer, service really helps commercial teams drive that revenue growth, drive sales team efficiency, drive customer retention, drive cost savings overall. And so, Chuck, maybe we just kind of throw it back over to you. Let's maybe get into some of the examples that we've got around leveraging the Dynamics platform as that revenue technology stack around, organizations that have been facing stalled growth issues. So
Yeah,
let's
for
flip to
sure.
the
Do you
next
want to?
slide.
Yeah, you want to? If you, I think there's one with a real example.
Yeah.
We changed the numbers and stuff to protect the innocent, but not materially. Uh, this is a real thing. This client was doing a tech evaluation and looking at different software packages, and it, when you start to compare feature to feature and feature to feature and feature to feature, you get twisted up. But then you sometimes, if you ask the right question, the right question was, it's an outbound and inbound call center trying to help people, but also sell. So what if we could optimize that engine and help them sell better? So we came up with 3 scenarios by, again, lucky enough to ask some good questions. And one was, how do we have the very best conversation with those clients? And Chris, who's on the call, has this solution he built called Dialogue Copilot, and it helps you build playbooks for conversation. So we're on a Teams call right now, and this call's being recorded. Well, there are different kinds of conversations you have with a customer. What if you baked best practices into those 3 or 4 kinds of calls, or 7 or 8 kinds of calls? Could you lift the win rate by this much? Not this much. Like, you go on the software company's website. If you turn on CRM, you will lift your revenue 50%. No, my stock portfolio would be crushing it right now if that was true. That's not true. You don't increase a factory's throughput by 50% by changing one machine. You change it a little bit. You pick the key constraint and fix that one. Then you move on to the next one. There's a thing called, if you went to the business school or whatever, you learn about the theory of constraints. That's all this is. We pick the top constraint, we solve that, we improve it just a little bit, and we pick the next constraint. So how do we drive cross sell? We can use AI fueled suggestions to drive cross sell. Number 2, how do we help them reach out to more people? Well, let's use multi-channel, and let's use automated sequences that prompt people not to just try them one time, but maybe you text them next time. Maybe you hit them on LinkedIn the next time after that. And then all of a sudden, you've got a systematic approach to increasing revenue. So these little 1%, 2%, 3% pieces for this client, and change numbers a little bit, but we all agreed that you could improve their revenue not by a little bit, but 17 million is a lot. And they didn't pay 17 million at all for this technology. So if it's the technology, and as Jeff, you and Thomas said earlier, a little change with the people and the culture, we can affect massive change if we do this the right way and look at it as a system, not just as a piece of software.
Appreciate that, Chuck.
Sure. And there's sort of common language about that we use here. And Jeff, I'm sure you can chime in on this, is we use winning by design. There's other models. We think it's pretty comprehensive, but it's a way that you can look at your business as an engine and a set of terminology. Like I wasn't familiar with all these things at first a few years ago when we started, but when you get into this, you can see to where, oh, I can make these little, as long as you have good data, you can make these little incremental changes and affect big change across your business. And there's terminology from the left side to the right side, and there's measurements over on the far right that you can kind of look at that people go, oh, that's just SaaS stuff. But it's not just SaaS. Upsell, cross sell is almost any business tries to do that. So you can use this across almost any business that has repeat customers.
Yep.
Yeah, I might jump in here, just offer some perspective as well. These slides represent a very kind of clean flow, left to right, as though it's very simple. And I'm sure most folks listening realize that it probably is not so much, at least not getting there. And so, a lot of the work that we do, both CongruentX and Coffee Dunn, is trying to help our clients map their process into this kind of a flow, to help them figure out where the barriers are, where the silos are, where the inefficiencies are. Try to come up with some of the standard terminology, but even this bow tie, which is an excellent framework. There's a lot of thought that goes into how to simplify and how to make the processes more standardized. And so a lot of that upfront work really is not system. It's not completely system independent, but it's not system dependent. It's focused on trying to understand the buying process, the rebuying process, the loyalty process, all those different elements of this life cycle, and be able to map it into something that is consistent, and then use that as the framework to apply the technology. And so I think we realize that, and you'll see as we go a little bit further, this is not done in one step. Typically, there's usually kind of a iterative, phased approach to it.
Yeah. So Chuck, why don't we transition? Let's talk a little bit about how customers get it wrong. How do organizations get it wrong? And let's talk a little bit about the approach based upon what you see in the marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, Thomas, to your point, the math part of it makes it look like a bow tie. In practice, it kind of looks like a flywheel in,
Right.
in a lot of cases. But yeah, so everybody wants to get closer to their customers and drive revenue. And we've seen people are buying a lot of technology to do it. I think CRM is now an $80 billion industry. And I think I lamented earlier that about 50% of the time people aren't happy with it. An additional insight is only 1 time in 5 are they getting revenue lift at it. And I think we've sort of beat the horse pretty hard on why, but I do think that there are 3 or 4 reasons that we can lean into here. One is we consume technology differently now than we used to. At home, we're used to, like, if I'm going to go for a walk with my dogs, my Apple Watch says, hey, are you going for a walk? And I just say yes. But you go to work, you got to fill out a big form. And yes, it won't be always the same, but work has to change. And it is. The other thing is the way that people try to do these projects, like a big bang, and purchasing wants to buy as many features as they can, and the business says, yeah, we want to be able to get as many features, and the consulting company wants to cram as many features, but the users go, wait a minute, I can't consume all these features. And as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, the webinar, is we think about these, oh, I need to replace this piece or that part, and we don't recognize that they're a system, and a system's only as good as its weakest piece. So those are 3 things we got to focus on here to make this much, much better.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that. So we believe that, it's important to think about that system, as Chuck mentions, kind of end to end, and take a sort of a stair step approach, frankly, to starting to make improvements. Now, again, it's important to have an audacious, goal, and try to really think about what's possible. But the execution of getting there can be more measured, can be step by step. And so I know on the Coffee and Done side of the equation, we call a plan, build, run methodology, and that planning is really critical. That's where you're going to establish the stakeholder alignment. Because quite frankly, in most cases, the IT, the sales, the service, the marketing, the executives, the individual contributors are maybe not all on the same page. And so it's important to kind of, in some ways, literally get in a room and think about what are the pain points, what are the opportunities. Now, with AI being what it is, there's a lot more insight. There's a lot more speed available to resolve a lot of these issues. But it's important to really understand what problem you're trying to solve, as we talked about a few slides back. And so we go through that exercise of laying out the roadmap and then trying to look for a couple things. One is, quick wins. Are there high value activities that are low effort that can have an immediate impact? That's important, not just for the impact itself, but politically to kind of get some momentum that starts the change management process, getting people on board with, they can kind of envision the future. Secondarily is to look at dependencies. What are the steps, but what things depend on other things? As Chuck mentioned again, it's a system, so it's hard to just replace one part without disrupting the whole system. And so it's important to really think about, if I change this part, what's the impact downstream? And so we go through that exercise before we start to apply the technology. And what happens when you do that properly is you start to see improvements in the cost of operations. You start to, see ways to reduce inefficient work. We talk about things like leads, unqualified leads. Start saving time from salespeople not working on unqualified leads. Speed to market, right? So if I'm focused on the right stuff and not the wrong stuff, I can move to close faster. I can, do things that are going to help me get more revenue in the door sooner. That's that accelerated time to value. So a lot of this is just taking maybe a little bit different approach than the classic Big Bang, and using technology where you can to speed that process. We use AI internally in terms of the way we execute our estimating, our meetings, our playbooks, and so forth. I know CongruentX does a lot of the same thing. And so it's really trying to take advantage of the technology in the process itself. I don't know, Chuck, if you have some additional thoughts or no.
I think you nailed that. We need to go get wins. Have a
That's right.
strategy, but go get wins.
Yeah, but Chuck, change management is a big deal too here, and in order to be successful with the technology, you've got to have the adoption support. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the experience that you guys have had around successful adoption.
Yeah, so yeah, I think this is, well, I guess we did design this so it flowed together. So we have, this is a real story. So we had a client who had big consulting companies, and nothing wrong with them. I worked with them, but they tend to think big, and they tend to think, oh, we need a 360-degree view. And you don't always need a 360-degree view. You just need the information to help you do the job to be done that you're trying to do at that time. So this particular client had, Salesforce, and then they had Microsoft, and they had 7.5 foot long forms on their CRM. And you think about pulling up to visit a client, and there's a concept called digital friction. And digital friction is the extra work that tech makes us do to get the job to be done complete. Well, the idea with tech is not that it makes you do extra work. It's the idea with tech is it makes your work easier, but it was making these folks actually skip the tech completely and call the office and ask, "Hey, I'm about to walk into ABC company. What's what's being shipped? Do I have any cases that I need to worry about? How's our revenue going with that client?" And there's a big reason they did that. So 82% of clients think that salespeople are unprepared for calls. 50% of salespeople think they're not prepared for calls. So these salespeople got it, and they understood how important it was to be ready, but the tech was just getting in their way. So our team, led by the guy I mentioned earlier, said, "Well, why do they need a 360-degree view? Why can't we make the tech work at work the way that tech at home does?" So we designed a solution that you pull up in the client's parking lot, and it says, "Hey, are you at ABC company?" And it goes and it pulls all the only relevant contextual CRM data about that client. What's on the way to the client? What are the orders? What are unfilled orders? And it looks in ERP and pulls back up, the financial data about this client. Do we have late invoices? Do we have contested invoices? Do we have issues that we need to think about? And their data lake as well. And while they're on site, it kind of helps walk them through what they need to do. They can do a return if they need to while they're on site. And now with Copilot, when you're leaving that particular client, you can actually, instead of going back to the office or the hotel, or Lord forbid, do it on Friday, you could just take voice notes about CRM or ask it questions verbally about that client. So what a completely different experience. And I just lied on this slide. The 10x adoption is, I just put that on the slide because it's believable, because their actual increase in adoption is it was from 0 to the average person's using it like 60 times a day. So it's it's incredible what you do with this tech if you don't think the way that many of us have been taught to think in the past. So let's think about how we can make the tech at work the way the tech at home works.
When it comes to transforming the business around customer and even aligning the technology stack around business growth, I guess it's appropriate to sort of ask, the question to the group here: where does your organization, stand? Because Coffee and Dunn and CongruentX have helped organizations, you know, on that maturity curve. Maybe, it's moving from limited vision of, customer engagement strategies to more of a, enterprise approach to things. Maybe they've got a lack of integration with sales and marketing and service. And now we're moving organizations to a more well-defined engagement strategy with coordinated functional processes and predictive customer journeys, as an example. Maybe there's a basic or disconnected technology platforms, between revenue and other applications, and we want to be able to move organizations to more of an intelligently, integrated technology architecture. Maybe it's got autonomous execution, predictive orientation, evolved algorithms as we start to think about the broader revenue technology platform that Dynamics brings to bear. So these are some of the problems and some of the challenges that CongruentX and Coffee and Dunn look to challenges about meeting customers and clients where they're at and moving them along the maturity curve, as we like to say. And so maybe I'll ask the question to you guys. What would you add here about driving that organizational maturity around precision revenue orchestration and this notion of revenue technology maturity?
Yeah, I'll go first and let Chuck bring it on home. I think this from and to is really it's foundational for the work that we do. That initial assessment, right, is the from and to. What are your problems? What are the pain points? Problems to be solved, and then the to is, what are the opportunities? What are you dreaming about? What do you hope you can accomplish? And I think in both the case of Coffee and Dunn and CongruentX, we have enough experience and breadth of experience that we can seed that conversation to maybe extract the latent problems that aren't obvious, or maybe break down some of the silos to help each of the groups be more transparent about what their actual challenges are and what the opportunities are. And I think if you can create the vision, then it's just a matter of taking advantage of all these capabilities that exist within the Dynamics platform, with Copilot, with Power Platform, and so forth. And so, I think it's really important. Two things. One is just to establish that plan. And then two, and I'm sure Chuck would echo this, is figure out what data you have that you're not using, what data are you missing, and then make sure that data is usable. So clean it up, dedupe it, simplify it. I don't, Chuck, what thoughts you might have as well?
Yeah, 100%. I believe you got to start with data, and I also believe, and I think you said this earlier, Thomas, is it start with a quick win. Like there, you can start with. I think Jeff, you said like a cross-functional team, and I couldn't agree more with that. And get people from the business, IT, and people who use the tech. So people who drive, lead the go-to-market, people who lead the tech, and people who use the tech to walk out those two things, and maybe look at the jobs to be done and where friction is happening, where tech is creating friction or is an opportunity to create fuel to help drive revenue. And a lot of times in just a few days time, you can pick 3, 4, 5 things that could make a quick impact, and sort of compete those ideas against each other and pick one to go lean into, and try to do one you can do in a month's time or less, and go through sort of that right side of the bow tie that Jeff showed earlier: onboard, adopt, and achieve. And then you can, I think Thomas said this earlier, then you can claim victory and start to promote the success that you've had with this. And then, then it's almost like that first hit. If you're a musician, it's like, well, okay, well, where's your next song? You've got the next song in your backlog. Like you've got a backlog of 3, 4 other things that you can do next. And then all of a sudden you can start to, let's say, industrialize that and make it a system, and put in a center of excellence around it. And all of a sudden you've got the pieces that you can build this thing into a revenue engine. And once you've got that engine, you can optimize it and make it better and better. So there's 3 components of revenue. There's performance, there's predictability, and there's insights. And we're kind of suggesting you don't have to start from the very big, massive organization change at once, because people can't consume it. We're suggesting start, claim victory, manage that change, manage adoption, claim success, and build that revenue engine, that tech that's going to lift revenue as you go.
Yeah, great insight, guys. Given the time that we've got left, we'll certainly take questions if folks have them, but we appreciate everyone joining today. Chuck, Thomas, maybe we talk to folks a little bit about what's next here.
You want to go, Thomas?
Yeah. Well, just a quick note, shout out here. There's an Envisioning Lab. We have built together different diagnostics and tools that we think can be very beneficial to clients, helping them kind of start this process. So, if you're struggling to figure out what are the problems or how to get them into a digestible framework that you can share with your stakeholders, we've got some diagnostic tools that allow you to do that. We welcome the opportunity to meet with you. No commitments basis, but just to engage and start that conversation.
Anything you add to?
Yeah, I would just say we, Thomas and I, are blessed or cursed to look after companies that sell the invisible. We sell the expertise of the team to help our clients apply Microsoft technology to business problems. And sometimes the best way to do that is just to work together, and we're both willing to make this investment of this envisioning lab, and you get to feel what it's like to work with our teams and see what we can do together, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Appreciate that, Chuck. Yeah. So you see the code there. Go ahead and take advantage of it. Again, thank everyone for joining us here today. Thank you, Chuck, for joining us here as well. Appreciate the partnership. And we'll sign off here until next time. But thanks again, everybody, for the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jeff, Thomas.